Hi, welcome to this week's episode of This Is In and our Caregiver Weekly series. I'm Nancy McCammon Hanson, and I am an AARP volunteer in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I have with me today Addison Pollock and Emily Gorman, who are directors of community engagement here in Indiana. So, would you both like to say hi or wave or?
Hi, Nancy. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
These
being
two
here.
are a lot of fun to work with, so just to give them a shout out. As you might already know, November is National Caregivers Month. And to celebrate each week throughout this month of November, AARP Indiana is going to be hosting caregiving experts on this show to provide information, guidance, and resources for caregivers from across the state. And even if you haven't become a caregiver yet, chances are it's in your future. All month long, this group is going to be covering a suite of topics, and we hope that you garner some great information from them. And on the topic of caregiving, your caregiving could be for a loved one, for a family member, for a neighbor. Just it really kind of depends. And if you're a boomer like I am, you know that if your parents, a lot of your parents and their friends are probably in their 90s if they're still with us. And it won't be long before you're in your 90s too. So this is an important topic. Today, we're joined by Abby Giha, who is a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association Greater Indiana chapter. And Abby is the walk manager for the Alzheimer's Association and covers northern and northeast portions of Indiana. She manages the Walk to End Alzheimer's here in Fort Wayne and just completed her 7th season doing that job. Fort Wayne is the second largest has the second largest walk in the state, and this year raised over $225,000 in the Fort Wayne area, which is, I think, something that you should be really proud of. She works really hard on this particular issue, and having had family members who have had dementia, I know that it takes a lot of compassion to work with Alzheimer's. Abby's lived in Fort Wayne a little over 15 years, and she moved here from Ohio. And she has been both a regional buyer and marketing manager for several different companies. And she also has a family, 2 children. And I found it interesting that she's been president of the Music Boosters at Bishop Dwenger High School. I'm also a band mom from way back, so good for you. And she graduated from the University of Toledo with both a BA and an MBA. And she put it, that was a long time ago. So, and I understand putting it that way. So Abby, take it away.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Nancy. I'm so happy to be here and to represent the Alzheimer's Association. I'm going to go through a few slides, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So let's start with, many of you might know that there's over 11 million Americans who provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementia. So that's a lot of people in the state of Indiana. There are over 320,000 people that provide care. So there's a lot of caregivers out there. There's 110,000 people in Indiana alone living with Alzheimer's and dementia. Next slide, please. I just wanted to start off letting you know what the mission of the Alzheimer's Association is. We lead the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. And today we're going to talk about the care and support end of what we strive to do. Next slide. Just so we're all on the same page, probably the most popular question I get is, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? And dementia is really just a broad umbrella term that describes all of the symptoms that can be associated with any of the different dementias. So, and they're all things that affect your daily life or interfere with your daily life. You know, everybody forgets where they put their keys. They forget somebody's names. That's just normal aging. But when things happen with your memory loss and other thinking abilities that affect your daily life. Like you no longer know what to do in the numbers in your checkbook. That's a major thing. We say the Alzheimer's Association because Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia, but there's several other kinds. I'm sure you've heard Lewy body. Robin Williams had that. Vascular dementia, frontotemporal. Those are the most common. Other kinds, and it doesn't always have to be just one kind of dementia either. There's people that have mixed symptoms, so it's kind of a complicated disease. But I know I have people tell me, well, they don't have Alzheimer's, they have dementia. And it's just based on what your symptoms are, what kind of dementia you have. So we can start there, talk about the next slide. So something I thought might be good for caregivers to know is just a few tips for the holidays, with the holidays coming up, because it's a tough time of year. Every day of the year is a tough time of year, but when you're out of your routine and something different is happening, here's just some quick tips for caregivers on what to do during the holidays. If you're traveling, make sure that you schedule time to rest. Getting in the car and going somewhere is kind of a big event for a lot of people with Alzheimer's. So make sure that you schedule extra time into the day for them to acclimate themselves. Another thing is you have to remember that they're probably most used to being in a quiet environment in your household, but we're taking them into somebody else's house where all the family's coming and everybody's going to be talking to them. And sometimes it's just good to find a quiet space for them to be able to go and be away from all the stimulus, because it's a lot for them to take in at one time. And it's a good thing to maybe limit the number of people engaging at one time, because we have to remember that their brains are processing things slower. So people just peppering them with questions just makes them frustrated and they can't process it. So sometimes it's a good thing just to put them in a room away from everybody for a little while and let a family at a time or a couple people go in and have a conversation with them and explain that to the people that are going in to speak slower and give the person time to respond, because they just don't always, they can't be quick anymore. I hear people, like a good example is I hear people about saying, oh, they were combative. And I'm like, well, if you're going into their room and you're saying, we're going to change your clothes, and you just start taking their clothes off, they're going to be like, whoa, what are you doing? Because they can't process that. But if you go into their room and you say, let's change your clothes today, let's get out your shirt and we're going to wear these pants and these are your socks, that gives them time to process, oh, we're changing our clothes, and they're not going to fight you. It's just, we're so used to everything being quick, 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 and you have to slow down a little bit with them. So those are just some, quick tips for the holidays for you. Next slide. I would say the most important thing that we say is take care of the caregiver, because I feel like, and it's proven that you're just trying to get through every single day, taking care of your loved one, whoever it may be. But you have to remember that you're that person taking care of them. And if nobody takes care of you, or if you don't take care of you, who's going to take care of them? So some tips on taking care of yourself, especially when you're taking care of someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, is become an educated caregiver. Know what type of dementia your loved one has. Know what's coming. Know what the symptoms are. Know what their behaviors are, so that you don't get frustrated. The more you know, the more you can help. Another thing is find time for yourself. This disease is a 24-hour-a-day disease. It doesn't just go from 9 to 5 and then you can go, okay, it's dinner time, it's time to go to bed, and we're all done. That's not how it works. People get up in the middle of the night. People let themselves out of the house. They could turn the oven, the stove on. You're always worried. So find time for yourself, no matter what that might be, even if it might be asking a neighbor to come over for an hour. And sometimes you just need to go to the park and sit in your car and be by yourself, talk to the ducks. I don't know, whatever it may be. But, sometimes you just want to read a book or go to the grocery store by yourself. You need that time away, and do not feel guilty for needing that. We all need time away, no matter what we're doing. Another tip is just to use humor, because anger uses so much more energy than humor does. And if I didn't use humor every day, I would probably cry all day, every day, with everybody that I deal with and what we work with. But sometimes things are just funny. And sometimes I find the people who have dementia or Alzheimer's are the funniest, and they will make jokes about it. And sometimes you just have to laugh with them. So, don't be afraid to use humor. Another thing would be to build a support network. Don't think you have to do it all by yourself. You have family, you have friends, you have people from church. When somebody says, "What can I do for you?" give them something to do, because they really want to help you. They wouldn't be asking if they didn't. It might be, gosh, could you guys mow my lawn this week? Or, I really don't have time to fix anything for dinner. Don't feel bad to ask for those things, because people want to help. Another thing would be to accept the changes that are coming, because Alzheimer's and all other dementias are progressive diseases. They're going to continue to progress, and there's going to be changes, and there's nothing you can do about them. So know what's coming and accept those changes, and figure out how to deal with those changes, one at a time as they come through. My last piece of advice would be, don't beat yourself up. Know that you're doing the best that you can do. Sometimes we have a bad day. Sometimes we have a great day and everything goes great. Other days are not that way. So just know that on that day, you're doing the best that you can do to take care of your loved one. And then I just wanted to give you some resources on the next slide. So how can we help? The Alzheimer's Association has a 1-800 number that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can call at any time and get a specialist, a master's level clinician. The help is confidential. All they'll ask for is your name and your zip code. You can ask them anything from, what is dementia? Why are they doing this? Or they can help you problem solve. Like, I don't know how to tell my dad he can't drive anymore. What do I do? They will help you strategize a situation. My mom's locked in the bathroom and I can't get her out. What do I do? How do I talk to her? They can help you in those kind of instances as well. So, and you can call them as many times as you want. They're there all the time. Also, we have free education. We have education programs within your community. And then there's also a website called alza.org, which will tell you anything you want to know about Alzheimer's or dementia. And the last one I want to mention is actually in conjunction with AARP, the Community Resource Finder. If you go online and just type in communityresourcefinder.org, click the Alzheimer's Association, and it will give you all the support groups that are in your specific area, as well as anything that you can do online. And I have to say that support groups are my number one go-to for caregivers. They are so, so important. It's just, I will say, when I first started with this organization, I was like, oh, support group. I'm one of those people. I would not go talk to people that I didn't know about a problem. That's just me. My first support group that I went to, I saw a woman, she was exhausted. She walked in the door. I was like, how is she even going to make it through this hour? By the time she left, she was laughing. She had tips on what to do, how to strategize, how to help her loved one, get him to do things. And they all came from other people who were going through the same thing she was going through. I am the biggest supporter of support groups, because I've seen how well they work. So I would suggest, getting out and going to one. But that is a great resource for many things, as well as support groups. So I would use the Community Resource Finder. But I'm open to taking, any other questions that you want to throw at. And one other thing I do want to mention is that all of our, everything with the Alzheimer's Association is free. The reason my title is walk manager because I raised that money in order for everything we do to be free of charge to families, caregivers, people with dementia who need it. So you don't ever have to worry about paying for anything with the Alzheimer's Association.
I think that's really incredible and very special. Thank you, Abby. That was great. We do have a couple of questions to ask you, but you covered a lot of the items. And so I loved the part about, thinking about the holidays, not overwhelming somebody with too many people coming in and out, things like that. I think that was really important to highlight. My first question, I think, would be just thinking I guess this is kind of a specific question, but just thinking in terms of a family member who's providing care for somebody who has Alzheimer's or dementia. Are there any tips you have for making sure that their home that they're living in is a safe space for them? Are there any tips you can give for things like that?
I would say that, we would give tips like, if they're starting to wander, make sure that the locks are someplace that they can't get to. Like sometimes people will put locks way at the top, or, they'll put alarms on the door. Alarms are a really good way to keep your person safe so that you can hear whether they're going in and out, because they can be kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot of good resources out in the community, like Aging and In-Home has resources that they'll come in and they will help you look at everything in your house to make it as safe as possible for that person. So, I would go to to a resource that's what they do, is make your home safe. So
Yeah.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Abby. Quick question about, you went over several resources and services that the Alzheimer's Association provides. Are there any services or resources that you find are the most popular and the most helpful for individuals who interact with the Alzheimer's Association?
I would say that our most popular is our 1-800 number, just because it's so easy to pick up the phone and ask the question, and we always say to somebody, don't lay in bed at 2:00 in the morning thinking about what what you're wondering about. Just pick up the phone and call. And the other thing I should say about the 1-800 number is we always have both English and Spanish available. But we do have I think 200 other languages that we can translate for. So, don't think just because I don't speak English, I can't call somebody. There's always help out there for them. There was one other thing that I forgot to mention, and I think there was a question on your ideas about what can people out of town do?
Yeah.
And that's a really good question, because a lot of times people are out of town and they're like, well, I just can't help. There's so many things they can do. They can offer to take over the financial responsibilities. They can, pay the bills, write the checks, do the online banking. There's other things that they can do. They can make appointments, like if you know that you have to go to so many appointments, they can set those appointments up. And most importantly, I would say, do not just stay away. A lot of people say, well, they don't know who I am anymore, I'm just not going to call. You don't know what point in the day or what day they might have a lucid moment where they do remember you, and the other thing that I say is, you will be surprised at how many things you learn about somebody that you've known your whole life. But when they have Alzheimer's, they sometimes go back in time and they talk about things that they've never talked about before. And if you look at it in a different light and live where they are at, you're going to learn so much about that person that you love that you're going to be amazed. So keep on calling, keep on being there, keep on visiting. You might think that they don't know you're there, but you don't really know that, so I think it's a good thing to stay positive and stay in their lives as long as you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. My question for you would be, I wonder if there are any tips that you could give or signs to look for if somebody is caregiving for a person who's still living in their own home, are there any signs to look for to know, whether it's needed for them to go into a long-term facility, or to get more help than maybe you are able to give as a family member? Is there anything to look for to know when that time comes?
I think first of all, everybody has to know that that's a different time for everybody. Like
Mhm.
you're the only one that can decide that. There's no when this happens, it's time. But the tip that I would give would be when safety becomes an issue, then it's time. If you don't have enough care and you don't feel comfortable bringing somebody in to help you, or the person is just resistant to someone else coming into the home, that might be time. If they begin to wander, and you are a hard sleeper and you're not waking up when they're going out the door, it's probably time.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get to the point where they get scared because they don't recognize the person who's taking care of them anymore. They'll say, my friend's mom said to her one day, who's that really nice lady that's sleeping on the couch? She takes really good care of me. And Lynn's like, it's me. It's me. But she didn't know that she was her daughter. And she was like, she takes good care of me. But other people have been like, who's that person in my house? I don't know him and I want him out. And that causes a lot of anxiety for people. So sometimes it's best to go into a facility. And I will say, in a facility, they're going to get a new person taking care of them every 8 hours. It's a 24-hour-a-day job. And that does allow the caregivers to go back to being their wife or their daughter or their, they don't have to take on that full responsibility, and they can go back to a different relationship to them. So don't always think that it's a negative thing, because sometimes it's a really positive thing. And, people in a facility can get them to eat, and they get the socialization, and they get all the activities that sometimes we're not able to provide to them at home. So, there's two different ways of looking at it. And I think there's a lot of positives when when that time comes to look at.
Yeah, definitely. And then I have a slight, like a follow-up to that. Is there anything in particular that you would highlight for somebody who's looking into, long-term facilities? What would you look for in a facility for your family member?
First of all, I would say we tell people as soon as you have a diagnosis, this is a progressive disease, and that it's going to get to that point probably. If you think that at some point you're going to put your loved one in a facility, start looking at facilities now, because it's always so much better for somebody that, like, a lot of times they'll go with you and they'll be like, I hate this place or I love this place. And how much easier is it to move somebody into a place that they absolutely loved?
Mm-hmm.
That is a big decision. So we say, go look as soon as you can, and, get on a waiting list, because if you're at the top of the waiting list and they call you and you're not ready, they'll just move on to the next person. You still stay at the top of that waiting list. So that way, when you're ready, you can go. I would just say when it gets to that point, you want to have a secured unit. And I know some people call them locked, but secured, because that's for their safety. They can't hurt themselves and get out. So look at that in a positive light too. But every facility is different for every family. Some families love a place, some people hate a place. It's all a personal decision. And, look at the ratings, talk to people. There's a lot of good facilities out there. So really a lot of good facilities, and the people that work in them care, or they wouldn't work there. They care about your loved ones, and they love people with dementia. There's people out there that's their specialty. So, remember that.
That's special, and that's really important. I think that's all the questions that I have for you. And Nancy's back. Great.
Abby, this was wonderful. My father had dementia, and my mother had a really hard time adjusting to the fact that he had to end up in long-term care. And I wish we had known you 10 years ago when all that was going on. Life would have been much easier. this is all we have time for today, unfortunately. But I would encourage you, if you have a family member who has Alzheimer's, or it looks like they may be heading that way, to educate yourself, because it will make life so much easier for your family. I want to thank Abby and Addison and Emily for your time today. Great work. And we hope you'll be able to join us for the next installment of the Caregiver Weeklies, going on through this month of November. And if you want more information about this work and other facets of AARP, there is a website, aarp.org/IN. So it's aarp.org in, and there it is on the screen. And please share this information with others that you know, and encourage them, even if they're not AARP members, to watch these videos, because great information. So that's all for today. We thank you, and we'll see you next week.